Hey everyone, my name is Leo,
And my name is David.
and we are not film critics. So, today is a very, very special episode. We have a special friend of ours, a very talented man. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, I'm Nicholas Biancolin. I'm a freelance musician and good friends with Neil and David.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, as you may have read from the title, today's topic is film scores. And we brought in Nicholas because obviously he's more knowledgeable of this aspect of film, and so I guess we'll just let him have his time and let him steal the show.
All right. Well, it's not often I get to talk about music. Everyone I'm around usually says, Nicholas, shut up, it's annoying. So it's nice to have an outlet where I can freely speak about music, and especially film music.
Oh, hell yeah. Talk about music all you want.
Because, talking about, especially in film music, it's not just that you have to write a lot of music for a movie. You have to write a lot of music that ties together, right? So one key thing in film music that composers work on extensively, this is the hardest part, for sure, of writing film music, is coming up with the themes. So generally, you'll have 3 or 4 themes per movie, and they relate to either characters or places or things in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll use the example of Ratatouille, because that's one of my favorite movies, both, from a movie perspective and from a music perspective. So you have a theme, you have like Remy's theme, which is kind of the sewer rat theme. And then you have, the Paris theme, which is very romantic and not at all lively. And then you have the Linguini theme, which is very goofy and very, kind of fun, I guess is the right word. But it's all these different themes that take up, all the music in the movie. And so they play when their character or their place is on screen.
It's very, very interesting because when you go to a movie, the music is definitely one of the last things that you notice. It's the harsh reality of the scores, but obviously it's also appreciated within the inner community of filmmakers and movie critics and movie lovers. But if you're just an audience watching like a movie or a show, it's something that you bypass, and it's very important. It's very important.
It's very important. You're right. And so this goes right into another topic that I was thinking about. There's 2 schools of thought when it comes to film music. Neither's inherently better or worse. Some people like one better. Basically, the 2 schools of thought is basically some people think that the role of music in a movie should be 100% background. Like it should be there just to, just to help illustrate the scene. But then, some people think that music should almost be another character in the movie. It should be, it should be prominent. It should be speaking to the characters and themes. It should be, I guess, present, right? So it really depends on who you ask for that kind of stuff.
It also kind of depends on the whole argument of diegetic versus non-diegetic music in a film. Because, diegetic music, like, it's in the movie, like it's physically there, but non-diegetic, if it's executed, like, wrongly, then it can feel almost out of place, and that's a big problem, like, kind of, that's the risk you take when you use non-diegetic music in a movie.
Another great point about knowing the movie, right? Like, it's, like, songs are great on their own, and film scores are great, but using them in the wrong context doesn't generally yield good results.
Exactly. And part of the reason why I wanted to do this episode is because I wanted to learn more about how not only making a score for a film, but how the score impacts the movie itself. So what do you have to say about that, Nick?
Well, okay. So you're talking to a bit of a music nerd here. So I'm definitely paying more attention to the music in a film than other people would be, just because, something I'm interested in and I enjoy listening to it. And I can 100% say, regardless of the genre of film you're making, the music has an impact, right? It's another sense, right? Like, we're not only seeing this movie, we're also hearing it, right? It's another way of experiencing this movie. And so, of course, it has a big impact, and it's very important to do it right. What are some examples?
Who do you?
Sorry.
Yeah, example.
Examples. Okay, well, let's stick with Ratatouille for the time being, just because I spoke about that earlier, and I love Ratatouille. I will say it again and again. One of the greatest Pixar movies. But that's not about today. We're talking about music here. But you look at Ratatouille, right? And you have moments when, like, if you like, I'll pull up the Ratatouille soundtrack here, the whole album. There's like what, 20 songs on it, on the whole thing? 24 songs, right? So of course everybody knows the main theme. I don't know what it's called now, but like the main theme, it's all like lovey and romantic. And that one acts more as like, yeah, it acts more of like a song in the movie as opposed to a part of the score. Because, it's diagenic. Is that what you said, David? Diagenic? I don't think I've heard that word.
Diegetic music. D-I-J-J? No, G-E-T-I-C. Diegetic. It's like in the movie, like the characters can hear it or they can't hear it.
Okay, diegetic, that makes sense. But yeah, you have stuff like that that's very diegetic because it's an important part of the movie. It really helps tell the story. But then you have more background tracks that, if you're not paying attention, they're just there. But if you are paying attention, you recognize the genius of the composer, or I guess the arranger, but still. So, right now, well, not right this very instant, but if you go onto the Ratatouille soundtrack, I highly recommend you listen to both the Ratatouille main theme, of course, because that's the main theme. And then, let me try and find one of the ones in here that's a reimagination of that. Oh yeah, and then so you look up the main theme, and then you look up the one called Le Festin. Now you listen, and of course, well, pay attention, obviously. But you'll notice they're the same song, they're just in different keys and different style, right? Because they both play in the same moments. They both play. I don't want to spoil the movie for you all because it's such a good movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it right away. Well, if you haven't seen it, go watch it before I spoil it. But the Le Festin song, it's the first song on the soundtrack. It's arguably the most famous song from Ratatouille. You'll notice that it plays during the scene when Colette and Linguini are actually, well, they're skating through the street, and this is kind of exploring. It's kind of like a time lapse almost, but it's exploring their time together. And and then you also notice the Le Festin song also plays at the very end of the movie when Remy's finally opening his own restaurant in Paris with what's the critic's name? Anton Ego. So you just notice like all these themes, they tie together. Like, and you may not notice it if you're not listening, but it helps your brain like almost subconsciously. I think they've done studies on this, that like you hear the melody and you recognize the theme, right? Like maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, you're like, oh, you can kind of hear the same music. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kind of.
I've heard about this before, like the idea that composers reuse the same themes or the same like general like chord progression or something to like try to evoke the same emotion or the same like feeling in a movie again, or to maybe like twist it slightly. Like for example, this isn't in the movie, but it's in a video game in Undertale. The creator, the writer of the Toby Fox, he uses the same general theme, but he like twists it, he distorts it in different ways. He uses it at different times of the game to mean different things. And it's actually a really interesting kind of like Easter egg for like not only musicians, but also, when you're like playing the game to experience the music and you kind of think, oh, this is familiar, but it's just unfamiliar enough that like, you get a new sense from it. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's also something I've noticed. Have you guys seen Justice League? I think that was our last episode. Yeah. Throughout the movie, there were like various sounds or types of music that were just for a type of character. So I spoke about it last episode, but there was the score, right? The Amazonians, they had a very distinct score only for them, and the sound or the music would only play if the Amazonians were on screen or if there was a battle with Wonder Woman. I found that very, very interesting and cool at the same time because it ties down with the character itself and the movie itself.
personally about like the whole like the motif there. Personally, I wasn't big of a fan of that because like that's the kind of thing when using like the same motifs over and over again, you have to know when to use them because if they're like not used properly or if they're used too much, it can get annoying. That's what happened with me. I was annoyed by the singing voice every time, but like in the original Wonder Woman movie, whenever they used her sound like her theme, I was like pumped up because they used it so sparingly that whenever it was on screen, it meant something cool was happening, and that's kind of the association I created with it.
Right, right. Let's get back into the Pixar world. Wally, very very famous and very relies heavily on the sound just because most of the movie there's no dialogue. What do you think of the movie?
Well, Wally's my favorite Pixar movie of all time. Ratatouille was a close second, but Wally is number one in my heart.
What do you think of how they use the score and how like how it sounds for you personally?
Well, it was a great movie in that because it was so musically heavily, it didn't do much with those themes. Like I'm just gonna look up the soundtrack now just so I can get an idea of. Again, if you haven't seen this movie, go watch it. It's phenomenal. But then again, this is a movie that it doesn't have much score, which is not very useful for much movies, right? Because it's a lot of musical storytelling, right? Like if you listen to this song, the 2815 AD, it's the second song on the album. It's like that pretty much, like along with the visual snapshots of the trashed buildings and the desert ground, it really paints a picture in your mind, and you recognize, okay, this place is deserted and it's a trash town. It's not sustainable it's not sustained anymore, right? And then of course you have the famous defined dancing scene, which is just blows my mind every single time I watch it. Like I can't watch that scene and not get all like touchy feely. You know what I mean? It's just such a beautiful scene.
Yeah, that's another thing I probably wanted to go into. Like what like scenes with like music scores where they really like kind of really aid your experience, or it became like a standout scene in the movie. Like where's like a scene where the music score or like even the music in general, it really like altered or really improved your experience with the overall movie for a specific scene.
Okay, well I'm gonna have to think about that because there's a bunch. I mean, I'm always listening to the music, so it always impacts me. But one for sure is there's this show on Netflix. Highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's great. Called Your Lie in April. I just finished it yesterday. Fantastic show. Anyway, they use this same kind of how would I describe it? They use this same motif, but they only they use it sparingly, like you said. Like the motifs are all about it because the motif cues back other times when the motif was played. So when they play the riff, it really brings back what happened in the past. So I'm not going to spoil it because it's fairly new and it's very great and you should 100% watch it. Again, I'm recommending so much stuff here. You're not going to have time to watch it all, but it's okay. But yeah, so they played this one piano theme. So as a pianist, that already kind of got my attention. But I don't know. I really liked the main theme from that. La La Land is a whole other beast, which we will definitely talk more in depth about later. We'll jump into that in a bit. But Wall-E, again, the fine dancing scene just said, gets me every time. It's beautiful. Orchestration too. We should get back to that because that's another key thing with all of these big musical moments.
I mean, personally, for me, like a scene I can like point out where it really affected me, then the music and the score, and like it really aided my experience in the movie was in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The scene where Miles finally becomes Spider-Man, the leap of faith scene. That like on its own, it's a really impressive scene, right? Like the animation, the story lead up, that's all great. But then the music and like the mix of the hip hop music and Daniel Pemberton's original score for the film, like layered under that, his Spider-Man score is like amazing. It made me grin like a goose the first time I saw it. And it just gives me goosebumps every time, like you said about the Wall-E scene. I feel exactly the same way about that one.
Well, for me, it definitely has to be La La Land. I think you know what I'm talking about, Nick. I forget what they call it, like the piece itself. Could you remind me?
Epilogue, the piece at the very end?
Yes, epilogue. Oh my goodness, I kid you not. I finished the movie literally nearly in tears because the epilogue, just epilogue itself. Oh man, that was chef's kiss. It was amazing. The scene itself is great, right? Going back into the memory or what could have happened, but the music, like they incorporated all the other music that were in the movie prior to epilogue, and they basically put it all together, and then along with the scene and what's actually happening, and it blew my mind. Made me feel a lot of stuff. It made me feel a lot of emotions.
It definitely does. And it does because it takes everything together and it jumps into one key thing that a lot of people don't recognize about music, and that's orchestration, which is like if you like you're probably thinking, oh, okay, I get what that means. It's just writing out everything for orchestra. But in reality, it's so much more than just that. It's not just writing it out for orchestra, right? Like for example, let's take the "Someone in the Crowd" melody from La La Land, right? So if we take our if you heard someone in the crowd, I'm sure you've heard this before. The melody that. Right, so that melody on its own, it's very basic, right? But when you pair it with chords, it starts to get more full, right?
Oh yeah. I remember that.
And so once you have those chords laid out, orchestration becomes just incredible because you're taking what 4 or 5 piano notes and spreading it out to maybe 100 instruments, all in this big area. And in reality, I can play this melody for you, right? And you'll recognize it right away. You'll know what the melody is from, of course, from Epilogue, because let's face it, it's one of the most beautiful scenes ever. It's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Visually and music wise.
Exactly, right? But like on its own, like if it's your first time hearing that melody, it's gonna sound kind of boring, right? But if you put it together with some bass notes, right?
Imagine if we get a copyright strike just for the tiny bit of like music he's playing.
Yeah, too much time. But it's these themes that once they come together and they're orchestrated, especially with like, like I wouldn't really call it sad because it's definitely a happy thing. It's just things like that when they're orchestrated, it makes a big impact. But it's not only orchestrated. Also, I don't know if you've ever heard the expression "less is more." So for 9 times out of 10, less is more is baloney, right? I'm gonna say that because it is. It's 100% baloney. But especially in something like orchestration, it's 100% important, right? Like. It's like even like taking a big orchestra theme and just playing it by a piano changes the sound entirely, right? It can change it for good and for worse, right? Like if we take me and Sebastian's theme, like whoopsies. Right? On its own, it sounds sad, right? I played the wrong theme. Sorry, that was completely the wrong theme. I meant to play meant to do this the City of Stars one from before, like. But then let's like if you take that and you not even just orchestrate, but also just rearrange and change the style, it makes a huge difference, right? Like, let's say I take that same melody and I'll bring it up a bit. From there, you can pretty much transform it into a whole new piece, right? That sounds like a completely different vibe from before, but it's the same piece, same chords, just transposed and played a little differently.
Yeah. I think that's like the versatility of music, especially when like working in film, because you can not only just use music, because music can always be used to create emotion, like even if you're just listening to it on headphones, but when paired with visuals and like sound and like a story, it can really be impactful. And the another thing is, I haven't actually like watched La La Land in a while. I think the last time I watched it was like I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But even like 2 or 3 years now, I still remember the themes. Like they're still in my head. I don't know how they got there. I don't remember watching the movie that hard. But I guess since some good music just sticks in your head and it just makes a home there.
But going back to epilogue, one more thing. Credits music is very often overlooked, and it shouldn't be, because you take any credits theme, like the credits from Ratatouille, um, credits from not really La La Land because they had epilogue, but credits from Wall-E, kind of, not really, but credits from.
I remember the credits in Avengers Infinity War were pretty weird. Not weird, impactful. Because I remember sitting at the end of the theater and like the music was really nice.
Yeah, well, I don't remember that theme too well, but I'm sure it was just what they like to do is they take all the themes from the movie and they put them into one piece, right? Normally you leave after the first 2 minutes, so you don't hear the rest of it. But for something like the 9-minute long end credits of Ratatouille, which I highly recommend you listen to because it's so good. It's essentially all of the themes tied together. You have the Colette's theme, you have the sewer rat theme, you have the Linguini theme, you have the Remy theme, and then you have the Le Festin theme. You have all of them all in this one big huge piece that it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, when I go to a movie, I don't really listen to like the credits. Usually, I'm out of there, right? If the movie is finished, I am gone. That's how it usually works. But I don't know. I guess it also depends on how long the movie sticks with you, because the last impression you get of a movie is the credits, right? And if the credits movie is like 30 minutes of a drum slamming on the ground, then you're not gonna you're gonna come away a bit sour. But if it's a bit nicer, maybe you'll come out of there with a higher opinion of the movie. What do you think is the worst movie you've seen that has great music, or vice versa?
Lots of good movies have good music. Lots of bad movies have good music. Lots of good movies have bad music. Just I have to really think hard about this one. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. I'm gonna get a lot of pushback for this, but I wasn't crazy about the Inception music. Inception, fantastic movie. Loved the movie. Music was kind of only okay. I wasn't crazy about the music. Like a movie like Interstellar was phenomenal. Loved that music. Made the movie. Actually, I watched a Hans Zimmer masterclass where he talked about exactly that. He was talking about how he wrote the movie and how
Flack.
I don't want to spoil Interstellar now, but the idea was like I don't want to because they're all good movies that people should watch. But okay, moving forward, right? Like Chris Nolan came to him with the idea of not a movie about space, but a movie about fatherhood, right? And what it means to be a father. And so that's how he came up with the theme, right? I don't know what the theme is off the top of my head, but that's how he came up with the main theme for the movie. And that's like it plays when he's with his kids on Earth, and he plays when he's watching the tapes in the spaceship. And it's just, that's another scene that gets me too. That scene right there. I'm gonna have to look through my recently played. Oh, How to Train Your Dragon. Don't like those movies very much. I mean, I wasn't crazy. I mean, I probably wasn't crazy about it just because my brother watched it on loop all the time. that's probably why I'm not crazy about it. But the music was like I listen to the music now like on its own, and it's just like, whoa, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like kids movies are kind of unappreciated when it comes to like good music, because a lot of like kids movies, even for like tiny, very like even for like toddlers, has like weirdly good music for some reason. Like it doesn't even make any sense. That's something I found at least. We could talk about our favorite film scores.
Yeah, what's like? I mean, I know what mine are, but I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say.
I'm kind of an odd person when it comes to music and movies. I'm not a huge fan of traditional film scores. I like when music is used like music like songs, like pre-made songs are used in a movie. I maybe it's just because a lot of like movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, Baby Driver, other Edgar Wright stuff. He uses music really creatively. He doesn't usually have like a score kind of thing. He usually just he makes like new music for the movie, like kind of not like kind of more like song kind of music, and he implements it really well. I think implementing the music is also really important. That's why I think I don't know exactly because I don't know exactly. I have a list in front of me, but I really like what other scores do I like? I don't know. I don't really pay attention to the score unless it's a song I can download later on my phone. So
Wait, is the question like okay, hold on. How would you define like favorite score? Would it be just like one part, or would it be like the soundtrack of a whole movie?
a whole movie.
Okay, so yeah, mine would definitely have to be La La Land. I watched the movie. I went on Spotify and put the playlist on repeat like 10 times. It was I was just I was blown by it.
You mean blown away now?
You mean blown away by it?
Yes, yes. Blown away, blown away.
Yeah, Damien Chazelle, the guy who directed La La Land, the previous film he did was Whiplash, which is like a drummer movie with that guy from that guy from Fan Four Stick, and yeah, he's really good at like implementing music in his movies because I think he did study music for a really long time. Personally, like this is a bit of a hot take of mine, but I think I prefer Whiplash to La La Land,
Like the music or the film?
the film,
Yeah, the film or the
the
music?
film.
Well, I mean, they're different movies. It's hard to compare them, right? Like they're about different things.
Yeah, they're very different, not only in scale, but like in like the kind of music.
I don't know, Whiplash, like the film for me I felt it was a little not I don't want to say boring, but it was uninteresting at times.
Yeah, because it's a very personal journey about like
It
one
is,
guy.
yeah.
So I can see how that can get uncompelling. I might have to rewatch La La Land. I haven't watched it in a while though.
100% should. It's great.
Eh. Maybe my opinion will change with new growth.
All right, so again, well, we want to say thank you to Nick. A big thank you for educating us on film scores and how music can make or break a movie.
No problem, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Special thanks to Nicholas Biancolin. Make sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel at DNNote, or you could follow him on Instagram at nnote_music. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at not.film.critics and on Twitter at nonfilmcritics for exclusive content and news.
See ya.